Hello and welcome back to SMB Live. And today I'm joined by Andrew Davies of Davies Estate Planning. And the whole series that we're going to be talking about is all around wills, estate planning, trusts, etc., etc. But first off, I want to cover off what actually happens during the consultation process. And this is the bit where you kind of get everything planned out. Andrew, welcome to the show. I genuinely, this is a subject that I know relatively well, as my time as a funeral director for 5 years. And there was a lot that used to come in with that, within that industry, that happened obviously before. So you came in before the person had passed away, and we came in once that day had come. So let's talk a little bit about, the consultation process, it's quite daunting for people, I think. They've got all of these wonderful and weird ideas in their head about wills and how they don't need one or they do need one or whatever. So this is what we want to cover off in the series. Let's talk about consultations. So I want to have a will. I contact you. What's that process look like?
Okay. So from then on, we can do it in one of two ways. We can do it over Zoom if you like.
Yeah.
Or I can come to you and sit in your front room, drink tea, and hopefully have a piece of cake.
Top tip, make sure you've got cake and biscuits.
I prefer the second because this is something very, very personal.
Yeah.
And Zoom consultations are terribly personal. So it's much better to be sitting with people in their front room where they're comfortable.
Yeah, and I think I get that as well, and I understand that because it relaxes them as well, doesn't it? Yeah. So if someone's looking at will, they're looking at it, is there anything that they need to prepare for beforehand?
It's usually a good idea if they have some idea of how their estate is made up and what the values are. Not the nearest penny, but tens of thousands of pounds is broadly where they need to be. And an idea of who they would want to look after their estate, their executors and trustees, for example.
And what about the people that they don't want? Because that's quite important as well. Eh?
That can happen. Yeah. Families fall out, sadly. And yes, if they want to exclude a family member, they certainly can. In this country, we have testamentary freedom, by and large. So broadly, you can leave your estate to whomsoever you like. However, there is a piece of legislation called the Inheritance Provision for Family and Dependents Act 1975.
Right. Okay, what does that mean?
That means that if somebody is financially dependent upon you, particularly a spouse or children or someone not quite so closely related to you, and you have not made provision for them in your will, then they can go to court and say, I'm financially dependent on this person. They haven't given me any money. Please, can I have some?
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is all kind of stuff that they have to think about. Now, for me and Charlotte, for example, we don't have any children. So this is where that planning comes into place because we've got no one financially dependent on us. We've got no children, and yet we have an estate.
Indeed.
And so effectively you would think, well, the obvious would be our parents. But then their chances are we're going to outlive them.
Indeed.
So we've got to think about who comes in after that. Where does it go? Where does that estate end up?
Yes.
In those kind of processes.
In that sort of circumstances, then you are probably looking at maybe brothers and sisters, or if you don't want to go down that route, then perhaps your favourite charity.
Okay, yeah, cool. So the consultation process is quite important. And this isn't even once you've decided what it is. You may have an idea of what you need or want, but during the consultation, this is when it starts to get identified. Because, for example, part of our estate is our business. So it's not just a will we need, it's estate planning, it's everything else, isn't it? And this is where you come into it and you kind of ask the right questions and kind of do all that.
The consultation process really covers three things. First is, why am I there?
Okay.
What is it that's bothering you at the moment? Why do you need to do your will just now? Often it's just a case of well, we've been meaning to do it for a long time and never got round to it, and now, yes, we can do it.
Yeah.
Or there may be other issues. There might have been a diagnosis of a terminal disease, and therefore need to put their affairs in order fairly rapidly.
Yeah.
It can vary for all sorts of reasons. But it's useful to ask that question, because then that starts to channel how the rest of the interview will flow.
Yeah, okay.
And then on from that, you then look at the family tree. In many ways, it's very simple. Often enough, it's husband and wife, 2.4 children, and that's it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can get a lot more complicated than that. You may be in terms of second or third marriages and children, each of them, and you may need to make proper provision for those, for example. Or you may be an unmarried couple.
Yeah, because this is a big one at the moment, isn't it? Because they, when it was always wills and estate and everything else was always geared towards married spouses, but
Yeah.
that's not as common now.
That's right.
Which means unmarried spouses are more common, and I think that's something that people need to think about. Where does their house go? What does this happen? How does this work?
And there are things they also need to think about if they haven't got them. Because married couples are generally well prepared for. There are intestacy rules, and the spouse and children will be looked after under that process.
Yeah.
If they're not married, then it's a totally different ballgame. Assets which are jointly held, for example, will pass anyway to the survivor, and that is okay. But assets which are held in some names, they will not go to the unmarried partner, they will go to that person's brothers and sisters, for example, or that person's children.
Yeah.
So unmarried couples need to give quite a lot of thought.
Yeah, and I guess this is why that consultation is so important, to kind of identify what the circumstances are, what's the build-up around, the foundation of everything that's going to come into it.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, we're going to talk about this later on, but why is it important for people to think about this level of future planning? Why is it so important for people to think about that?
Well, if they don't have a will, then the intestacy rules kick in. Yes, there is cover, but your estate may not go to where you would like it to go.
And that causes a whole lot of problems. Well, listen, we're going to do a whole show about that, which is going to be coming up next. So, Andrew, I want to thank you for giving us a little bit of an insight on how the consultation has come about. But I do want to ask one final question. If someone is looking to, they haven't even thought about this, and this show has kind of triggered that thought, what would be a good way for them to get hold of you to sort of book that consultation?
You can email me, telephone me, go to the website, there's a contact form there. Any of these things would work.
Fantastic. And of course, we've got all those details on Cinebound as well for you to find. So it's definitely worth thinking about. Well, we will be back very, very soon with another fantastic episode with Andrew, talking all about what a will is, why it's important to have one. So until then, we'll see you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.